Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, I made a video yesterday talking about how I was going to league start Carrion of Creation, Bleed Infernal Shade, and I talked about how there was a lot of different builds that I was, thinking about, trying to figure out which one I wanted to play. So instead of just leaving them to die in the aether, I thought I'd just talk about them. So the first one is going to be Bleed Earthquake Werebear, Summon Bear, Summon Bear Beastmaster. So the idea with this character is we're going to just be playing Summon Bear, and it's going to be casting Earthquakes, allowing us to apply a lot of bleeds. Now you must be wondering, well, Dread, Earthquake notoriously isn't that good for bleed, and that's true, that is true, but there are ways of abusing it. So what we can do is we can get a very large amount of generic bleed chance just by being a primalist for our minions, lots of bleed chance, lots of bleed duration, and this allows us to scale an earthquake proc. So we're going to, use our Warcry to refresh our earthquake charges for Werebear, and he's going to use earthquake for us. Now, the reason why we care about this so much is we can go aftershocks, and not dot aftershocks like the damage over time aftershocks, actual physical aftershocks. The reason why this is so important is because we can get well over like 10 hits very easily, or even more than that, with Tremors and Shattered Earth. So simply what will happen is we'll put a totem or put a bunch of totems down near the boss. Summon Bear will create an earthquake. That earthquake will create aftershocks, and those aftershocks will go after the totems, and then those aftershocks will hit and then create another aftershock. And that's a lot of hits for Summon Bear. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but it is actually a lot because it can end up being like 10 hits per cast. And once we get our Warcry cooldown to like maybe like 3 seconds, that's like 10 hits every 3 seconds on top of everything else. There's a lot of other reasoning behind this idea, but that's a lot, and it's also a lot of clear because Summon Bear has gotten a lot of new nodes. The biggest one being Thorn Eruption. Your bear has a chance to cast a Thorn Burst from each enemy hit by its Earthquake, and I'm going to assume it means Aftershocks as well, because, Aftershock is the base functionality of Earthquake. This chance is tripled against boss and rare enemies. I believe you can only get one hit, you only get like one Thorn Burst maybe per enemy. I don't know. This could be multiple Thorn Bursts. I don't know. It doesn't it just says chance to cast from each enemy hit. I'm going to assume, yeah, you can only get one, but that's fine. That's an extra hit. We also have access to Thorn Bear. Your Thorn's basic attack releases a Thorn Burst, a spell that deals physical damage around the bear. That's another hit. So each time your Summon Bear attacks, it gets 2 hits instead of just 1. And then we can also scale the Thorn Burst damage and get some Thorn Bleed damage. And not only are we getting the Earthquake, we're getting all of the Thorn Bursts, we're getting the Earthquake, we're getting all of that combined, we're getting the melee damage. So that could, in theory, make Summon Bear do enough damage in the endgame with Bleed. Now, the biggest thing that has made this even possible is before I wouldn't even have thought about doing this until they changed how Aspect of the Boar works. So first things off, they made it so that we can get Aspect of the Boar from evading. I'm not sure how many nodes we'll need in this, probably 5, but I'll mess around with it. This is subject to change. This planner isn't finished. It's a Theorycrafted planner. I'll be playing this probably as my second build. But this node specifically, Aspect of the Boar has a chance to give your attacks and spells bleed chance on hit, and it also gives you physical pen with bleed. Now that's a lot of bleed, and now you can actually give that to your Summon Bear, which is new. We weren't able to do that before. That's a lot of bleed chance. And then you can also grab Primal Aspects, which is almost 100% more effect, right? I gotta mess around with the points, dude. Sorry. I gotta mess around with the points. The biggest problem is the points. I gotta fuck around with them a little bit, there's some pointage problems we had to fix, but it's not that big of a deal. But having this 80% increased companion aspect effect with this bleed pen means we have almost 240% extra bleed pen on top of everything we do. And that's very useful because we can get a lot of bleed duration by just using a doublet of almost toll, which is like 200% bleed duration. So we get 200% bleed pen, 200% bleed duration, and then we also get a lot of generic minion bleed chance on hit because of attack speed here, attack speed on the tree. We get a lot of percent damage from scales, and we're also stacking strength. All of that combined leads to our summon bear doing decent damage. But we also can push this even further. So what we can do is we can run Chorus of the Anurok. It is a primordial unique coming next patch. It gives a lot of flat life. It gives extra companions, but we are going solo companion, but this is important. If you have less than your maximum number of active companions, you summon Primal Anoraks up to your maximum number of companions, meaning that even though we're playing a solo companion build, we can benefit from all of our maximum companions and summon a bunch of random minions. These minions will scale for generic bleach stuff. They won't get the gigantic amount of bleed pen from the aspect though. Now, what's interesting about this is they aren't companions. They have been confirmed to not be companions. So we just get a bunch of little shitters running around. So that's cool. Also as well, 45% increased area for area skills for minions and attack cast speed for minions. It's cool. Both skills we like, because remember our aftershocks hitting the same target on single target with Thorn totems, having more area will affect that, right? Also as well, it also affect the area of our Thorn bear as well, and the area of its basic attack, giving us a lot of clear that we normally would not have had. Summon Bear is going to be able to walk up to a bunch of chumps and fucking explode the entire screen. It's going to be great. And we also have access to another AoE mod, apparently. This is new. I couldn't find it in the patch notes, but we have a hybrid AoE percent minion damage mod. That's pretty crazy. 40% AoE here, and then more AoE as well from here. So like, that's going to make the Thorn Burst big. That's going to make the Earthquake big. Like, pretty much Summon Bear is going to be a lot of fun. Now, I'm not entirely sure how the single target will be, but we'll see. We are just a strength stacking, health regen stacking, HP stuff, like with, Beastmaster. I'm not sure how well this build will perform. That's what we'll be doing as our second build, I believe. I want to play this. Do not play this build. It's not worth your time to test things like this because there are other things you could be doing. Also as well, I'm pretty sure crit outscales this significantly, but I wanted to try bleed personally because I like the idea of having a bunch of thorns, like Thorn Bear. Thorn Bear is fun. Also as well, mind you, we also get Thorn Burst when hit, which is up to 6 seconds every 4 seconds. That's pretty much a Thorn Burst per second, pretty much. That's a lot of extra retaliation when you're in the monos, and that's a lot of extra hits on top of all of our bleed chance and stuff like that. Like our Summon Bear is gonna be like a Giga Chad at this point, right? In my humble opinion, like it's gonna be great. Like it's gonna be great. I'm excited for it. I'm not entirely sure what else we could do to push the build further, but this is the very generic setup. Very what do I call it? Very conservative setup. We can go way bigger than all of this if we wanted to. We do want to scale some cooldown recovery speed on our items because we want to get more earthquakes for our summon bear. The biggest problem with this build versus like the earthquake crit build is we like our idle slots, so we don't want to sacrifice for it for minion cooldown recovery speed, but we can just make our own cooldown recovery speed and use freaking Warcry instead, and that should be fine. It should be enough because of all the generic bleed chance and stuff like that. But the idea of having Earthquake for cast from Bear, which then casts all the aftershocks, and those aftershocks cast other aftershocks, that's going to be really entertaining. And then of course all of those will do Thorn Bursts on enemies. We get a lot of Thorn Bursts. We get a lot of Thorn Bursts from it just using his basic attack. Like we get Thorn Burst from when he's getting hit. There's just a lot of things going for this character, and if the Anoraks are even remotely usable, that's a good start too. I have no idea what they are. We're going to go into it eventually and figure it out. We can always try to run a different primordial item, but this one seems to be interesting at the very least. I plan on testing it. We'll see if it ends up being good or not. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the character. Like I said, I'm going to be league starting this character making a bunch of currency, finishing my stuff, and then swapping over to this character as I find it interesting as well. Like, we're going to be testing a lot of different characters this patch. I have a lot of work to do. Let me tell you, I have a like just enormous amount of work. With all that being said, this has been Dread. I'll have to go do something else. Bye.